DJ, go.
Hello friends! After more than a year away, I am back! Welcome back to the Impossible Challenge series where today we're going to take on Gran Turismo 6. For those of you that subscribed and were following the channel back in 2023, I am sorry for being gone for so long. I'm going to try and do better this year, and we are going to start with entering our name. If you're new to this series or don't remember how I do these challenges, I have two basic rules. First is that the goal is to not spend any money at all. However, if the game forces you to buy a car to get the game going, then I'm not allowed to use that car. In essence, it's the same as not spending any money. The second rule is that I use speedrun.com rules when it comes to beating the game. This means that all I have to do is trigger the end credits, and without spoiling anything, just know that that caveat is going to be very important to this run. You can see here that Gran Turismo 6 starts you off with a tutorial at Brands Hatch, and rather than bore you with that, I'm just going to show you that I drove almost the entirety of the lap, only to realize that I could have started and quit out at any moment. Truly a bright moment in the history of DJ Brohawk. But we carry on. So you'll see here the game forces you to buy a Honda Fit. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about this until you buy the car. So we're going to buy it, but like I said, the rule is we're not going to use it. If you are a purist with these challenges and you think the challenge is over because I spent credits, that is completely within your right to feel that way. For me, to make the challenge more interesting and to make the video longer than 5 minutes, I am going to try and beat this game without using the Honda Fit. Now, I don't want to show a ton of menuing because watching menu scrolling is not very exciting, but I also want to make sure that I tell the story of this run. And you can see that after you get this lovely driver's gear, which of course look good, feel good, I guess, you can see that there's really not much of anything that's unlocked for me. I scroll around a little bit. I'm looking to see if I can click on anything that will let me not use the Honda Fit, and I'm not having a lot of luck until I stumble upon the Ayrton Senna Challenge event. The first stage of this event is at Silverstone. By the way, why isn't this track in Gran Turismo 7 yet? Polyphony Digital. It is a trip around Silverstone in a 1980 kart similar to the one that Ayrton Senna drove. First thing you'll notice is that this kart gets up to 80 miles an hour, which had to have been terrifying for the time. But one of the things that I try to show in these runs, a lot of times you'll see the run where I succeeded. That's not always how these runs go. As you can see, I run really deep into this left-hander because I just don't really have a good idea of how this kart brakes or feels. You'll notice on the map in the top left, this is a straight, but not on this track. There's a little bit of a left, right, left here. And then there's going to be another one, and you're going to see that I just completely failed to make a right turn, and we get DQ'd. So you can see, even though I don't necessarily show all these attempts, I do want to show that these runs do take time. I am not someone that nails all these first try. But after a few attempts, we do get through. This challenge, we really don't care about it too much. We just want to get a silver and move on. The next part of the challenge is Formula 3 at Brands Hatch. 1983, Ayrton Senna drove the West Surrey Racing Formula 3 car. And this is where the run starts in earnest, because this is going to be the first car that we use to try and make this challenge possible, and I can see a path forward. Not necessarily a path to beating the game yet, but I can at least see a path forward, and so we are going to kick it off by trying to get this car around Brands Hatch. Of course, this car feels very different from the 1980 kart that we were just driving, so getting used to that did take me a number of attempts. And it's further complicated by the fact that I am no longer a pad player on Gran Turismo, so you can see my inputs are very sloppy, choppy, for lack of a better term. But as we cross the line for the first time, it's a 46.1, a little over a second off the silver time. The good news is we only need a silver time. We do not need a gold time in order to advance, so we're going to try it again. And we immediately fail. So we're going to try again, and this attempt, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on every attempt, but this attempt is really a testament to how difficult it is to play this game on a pad. not just this game, but Gran Turismo in general. So we get through the first turn of Brands Hatch, which of course is one of the trickiest corners on any circuit. Coming through on the right-hander, you can see I'm hugging the curb, and I'm doing that kind of like tap to keep it on the curb. It's just very messy looking. Coming around the first left-hander, I'm a very uncultured American, so I don't know the names of these corners, even though I probably should. And here at this left-hander, we're going to catch the inside curb and spin out, and that's another failed attempt. But you saw where I steered a little too strongly, and it took me into the curb, whereas on a wheel, I would never do that. That would pretty much never happen because I could put in the minute inputs, but because I am not very good on the pad, it's very easy to crash that way, and so I have eternal respect for pad players. And while I was yapping about that, we crash in turn 1 yet again. The following attempt, we get a 45-3, so we are getting closer, and then 3 attempts later, finally, we get on this run. It's a 44-3, of course, not close to the gold time, but well under the silver time. And that is all we need to get our first car of the run, the West Surrey Racing Formula 3 car. Look at it in all its beautiful glory. And I want to reiterate, I will be showing some menuing through this video. I feel like it's my job to tell a story, and the menuing really does tell the story of this run, because there were so many instances where I had to look at the restrictions on certain races and see if I could make it work with the cars that I had. So for instance, the very first cup requires sports tires, and this Formula 3 car only has racing hard tires on it. And it also requires a performance point value of 430 or less. And so you can see me going through the menus, and I've sped this up to because I don't want to linger on it too long. But you can see I am examining my options. I also probably had a browser window open on another screen just to see what kind of options I had available. But you can see I'm checking to see the power limiter, the ballast. I'm trying to see what kind of performance point value I can get out of the car, even though I don't have sports tires, because at the end of the day, it is possible that I might have to spend money. If you remember my Gran Turismo 3 run, I did have to spend some money to beat the game. I could not actually complete the challenge. So we will see what happens. But for now, I just want to show you that, yes, there is a lot of thinking that goes into these runs while I'm doing them to see if it's possible. And as you can see in the video, we have settled on what might seem a little confusing, but we've moved on to the next part of the Ayrton Senna challenge in the rocket sled Lotus 97T. This car was terrifying, and now, friends, we are going to play the numbers game. If you are new to the channel, the numbers game is basically, I want you to guess how many attempts it took me to get a silver on this challenge. Just a silver, not the gold time. How many attempts do you think it took me to get silver on this? Leave your guess in the comments below. We are going to go through it now. Buckle up. whoa, whoa, whoa. 1:21.8? That's over 3 seconds faster than the gold time. Am I secretly a Gran Turismo god? Just kidding. I don't know why that time was so fast. It didn't seem like a great run to me, but we'll take it. Finally over that Monza. It took 16 attempts, but we still have one more part of this challenge to go, and that is the same Lotus at Brands Hatch. Now, for a bonus numbers game, tell me how many attempts you think it took me to get silver on this. You saw how hard it was at Monza. Go ahead and take a guess. It was just 5. It's a 1:08.4, well under the silver time, and that is the challenge for the Lotus 97T. That does unlock this car, although when I chose this route, I wasn't sure when or if I would get to use this car, but I figured it's got to be a really, really good car in the game, so we're going to unlock it. But now we're going to try and see what else we can unlock in the Sierra Time Rally. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these challenges because each one takes a really long time, but I will explain what's going on. So there's 4 challenges here at the Sierra Time Trial, and basically what you do is you see the timer on the screen. You kind of treat this like Outrun in the sense of you drive as far and as fast as you can, and you accumulate points based on how far you get plus how many people you overtake. So the first challenge here is in a Fiat 500 Abarth. And as long as you drive as fast as you can, don't crash, and overtake as many cars as you can, you should be able to win all 4 of these challenges pretty easily. Of course, you can see on the screen, we do unlock the Fiat Abarth 500, and the second car we'll get is the Volkswagen Scirocco, and the third car we'll get is the Ferrari GTO. But before I show you just unlocking the car, I wanted to point out, number 1, this race starts in fog and ends in sun, which I thought was interesting. But if you look in the bottom left of your screen, you'll see that my front tires are sports medium and my rear tires are sports soft. I can't remember another time in Gran Turismo where you had 2 different kinds of tires on the car, so I thought that was interesting. But in any case, we do unlock the Ferrari GTO, and then the final car we get is the Nissan GTR Nismo. All of these cars very easy to unlock, and you may have noticed all of the cars say that they come equipped with tuning parts, and that will help us out as we continue our run. But for now, we get to start actually racing. We have to start with the Sunday Cup, and you'll notice as I'm clicking through the menus that the tires for the Fiat 500 were changed to Sports Hard. You didn't see me click through the menus for this, but I happened to look these cars up and found out that they come with all the tires you need for free. So, despite the restrictions, some of these cups that would otherwise not be possible and require me to spend money actually won't require me to spend money. So like I said, I see a path forward, but now we have to start knocking out these races to see if it's even possible and to see if we can win any kind of car going forward that will help us out. So these races with the Fiat 500, there's really nothing to talk about. It was 2 easy victories, and the Sunday Cup is behind us. And so from here, you'll notice a couple of things. First of all, we unlocked the Amateur Cup, but you'll also see that we've collected some stars. So the way this game works is that as you advance through the game, you collect stars, which help you unlock the license test for that level of racing. And so we have to go through and collect stars to do that. We don't have to collect every star to unlock the license test towards getting to the end of the game, but we do have to unlock most of the stars in order to progress forward. And like most Gran Turismo games, the early game is not very difficult. I mean, you can see that I am not handling turn 1 at Brands Hatch well once again, but the 3 races in the Amateur Cup, none of them were particularly difficult, but I will say, if you get angry or fascinated at the way certain video games work, then I promise you this video is for you, so stick around. But for now, 3 more easy victories at the Amateur Cup. And with that, we've unlocked the coffee break, which is essentially a mini game challenge that is not really relevant to our run. And then we also get the challenge for the National B license. I called it a challenge. It's really just the license tests. So for these, much like Gran Turismo 7, you get a car for completing them, and you also get a car for getting all gold times on all of the licenses. Normally, like in my first Gran Turismo challenge video, I would go over these tests a little more in depth, but these were actually pretty easy. Much like the Gran Turismo 7 license test that I didn't find particularly challenging, these weren't very challenging either, and so I'm going to skip ahead and show you what I unlocked by getting all golds on the B license test. And the first car, or quote-unquote car, is the Racing Kart Junior, and I really appreciate how it lets you pick the color of the cars you get. And secondly, we get the Alfa Romeo Mito? Yeah, this car doesn't exist in the US, so I have no idea what it's called. Looking back, it's funny because I recorded this over a year ago. It was actually New Year's of 2024, and I don't remember what I was thinking, if it was just so easy to get the golds I got the car anyway, or if I actually needed this car. I guess we'll find out, but in any case, we carry on to the next part of the challenge, the A license series. And first up in the A series is the Racing Kart Junior series. The cool thing about a game like this is the game gives you cars to use for future races, which is really cool, or at least it does in this case. We will see if it does that in the future. But for now, really, there's not a lot to talk about with these 3 kart races. It's 2 kart tracks and then Autumn Ring Mini. 3 easy victories, and then we move on to the Freshman Cup, where we are going to use the Fiat 500 Abarth, which does fit the requirements. So the challenge is still on. We have not had to spend any money yet, aside from, of course, the car we had to buy in the beginning. But because we're not using that, I'm not counting that as money spent. Now, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent and say, you're probably sitting there saying, hey, DJ, show me some interesting racing action. And the honest answer is that right now there just isn't any. And you'll just have to trust me when I say that as we get toward the end of the run, some people that watch this are going to get angry, and I personally cannot wait to share that part of it with you. And it's not necessarily because I had to drive dirty per se, but it's just how the game works. And I found it very interesting, and you will see why here in a little bit. But for now, I want to tell the whole story of this run as I have the other 5 runs, and so we have to slog through some of these races that just really aren't that interesting at all. So here we go in the Freshman Cup, in the Fiat 500 Abarth, where I get the elbows out, but it's still an easy victory at Tsukuba, another easy victory at Silverstone, and another easy victory at Special Stage Route 5 Clubman, which, by the way, why isn't this track in Gran Turismo Polyphony Digital? That is now twice. At least Special Stage Route 5 was a track that they came up with. Like, come on now. Why isn't it in Gran Turismo 7? Let's go. Next up is the Clubman Cup, and before I talk about those easy victories, I want to point out here in the menu you see that the performance point requirement is 500 or less. The actual challenge itself is a 400 performance point challenge, and the Fiat 500 Abarth is at 415, but you can see that as the requirements go up, the actual cars needed are going to have higher performance. and we don't have that many cars. If not for the Sierra Time Rally, this challenge would have been dead in the water virtually from the beginning, so we're going to have to navigate these challenges coming up with what few cars we have, and the free cars that we get going forward from the license tests are not all available to us in the beginning, like in some older Gran Turismos, so something to think about as we move forward in this challenge. But for now, it's another easy victory, and we only needed this one victory to get enough stars to unlock the A license test. And much like the B license test, there's really not a lot to talk about with the A license tests. I actually recorded these, so I watched them back. 4 out of the 5 tests I completed on the first try. Only the final test, Apricot Hill at night, gave me any kind of trouble at all, and I was able to get the gold on that on my 5th attempt. So really not a lot to talk about there. But the 2 cars we do get, first of all, we have a Honda S2000, which is one of my favorite cars of all time. And then also we have the KTM, I've always called it the X-Bow. I think it's supposed to be called the Crossbow, but I, for whatever reason, call it the X-Bow. That car, we do get that one as well. Getting the National A license unlocks lunar exploration? Alright, quick sidebar, I have to go check this out. So it would seem that you can drive a lunar rover on the surface of the moon, which, again, by the way, why aren't these kinds of things in Gran Turismo 7, Polyphony Digital? Seems like Gran Turismo 5 and 6 had a lot more side fun modes than Gran Turismo 7 has. Look at this thing. We're getting up to almost 20 miles an hour. It may be closer to 16 miles an hour on the surface of the moon. Check out these alternate cameras. We have something gold. This looks like gold foil. We have 4-wheel steering, plus our own little satellite dish. And then we tip over. And now back to actual racing in the National A-Class Series, where we are going to kick off the Clubman Cup with the Nissan GTR Nismo we got earlier from the Sierra Time Rally. So the first race is at Matterhorn, which I do not know very much about. And if you're new to the channel, one of the things I try to do is I try to keep these races as clean as possible. I don't want to complete a challenge where I feel like I have to wall ride or excessively bump the AI. Yes, me driving on a controller, sometimes small little racing incidents will happen, but I try really hard not to be that guy that uses the AI as a brake bumper, for lack of a better term, but not always possible to do. You can see I bumped the AI right there, just an incidental thing from losing control. And because I don't know this track, I'm actually going to go off the track again, and I'm already thinking, well, with a bump like that, I would probably want to restart the race anyway as kind of a violation of my clean driving rules. But as you will see here in just a second, something so egregious happens, I elect to just start over. I miss my braking point completely, and we're going to have another go. Fortunately, the following 3 races were without major incident, and we lined up for 3 more easy victories. The first, of course, here at Matterhorn, the second at Roma, and the third at Bathurst, and we are well on our way to unlocking the International B license. And here are where the first cracks in the run really start to show. So we're going to attempt the Night Masters event, which, as you can imagine, involves racing at night, and we're going to try and use the S2000 we won in a license test earlier. One thing you'll notice is that I am on Comfort soft tires, and the best tire that is available for me to use in terms of what I theoretically could use is Sports soft tires. So I am at a significant tire disadvantage, and as you'll see, I am just not able to make Comfort soft tires work. Unlike the Sierra Time Rally cars, I only have one choice of tire for the cars that I won in the license test. So this is where things are starting to become a little difficult as I continue to be unable to unlock cars and be unable to spend money. But I have an alternative, and I'm going to switch cars and switch events. But before I do that, I wanted to show some quick menuing because I don't show all of this, but I checked all the available events that I could, and it took me about 3 minutes straight of just checking my cars and checking the events over and over and over again to see what options I had available. And I eventually settled on a turbo series with the KTM crossbow. And again, I mentioned the cracks starting to show in this run. Well, unfortunately, that did not change a lot going into this turbo event. The good news is that the crossbow has plenty of performance for this event. The bad news is that the crossbow is a little difficult to control. You might have seen me get a little oversteery on exit, but it was almost like front end oversteer as opposed to rear end oversteer. And we will see in a moment as we go through race 1 at Deep Forest, which, by the way, Polyphony Digital, why did you change Deep Forest for Gran Turismo 7? But in any case, you can see that this car is a little unwieldy, but we are making quick work of the AI. But again, cracks in this run starting to show, a little bit of oversteer there, a little bit of oversteer here. And we are eventually going to spin out as we try to make our way around the Sylvia, and we have to start over. Fortunately, on the next attempt, it's an easy victory. And next up on the list of races we're going to do with this car is Trial Mountain. And yeah, unstable car, pushing too hard, and we have to restart. But once again, on the second attempt, another easy victory. Now we roll on to the third race in the Turbo Series at Spa-Francorchamps, and again, an easy victory here. Fortunately, no drama in this race, and so we have cleared 3 more races without spending any money. But you can see we are starting to struggle just a little bit. Right now, it's controlling the cars that we get, but as you'll see soon, it's going to get even worse. But for now, we roll on to the Gornergrat League, and for some reason I decided to start with race 3. But as you can see on the list, we are facing actual race cars now. Of course, they're rally cars, and those aren't the best cars for tarmac, but I don't have a race car at all. I have the GTR Nismo we got earlier, and so we're going to have to make this work, and unfortunately, it is not working. I eventually decided that wasn't a clean run, obviously, and so we're trying again, but you can see from these clips that I'm driving with a sense of urgency because I'm not in a race car, and I'm trying to make it work, but unfortunately, I'm pushing just a little too hard, and we are going to get right into the back end of that AI, or we would have, and so we're going to have to try again. And this time, as we come over the crest of the hill, we will get into the back of the AI, and you can see I'm using the braking line. That's more of a reference as opposed to a hard and fast rule, although that time I should have listened, and we're going to have to go again. But fortunately, after another couple of attempts, we do manage to get the victory, and I've been foreshadowing this for a while, but on the last lap of this race, I noticed something that is going to be very important later, so stick around and I'll explain all of it. But in the meantime, that one race was enough to unlock the International B license test, and once again, these weren't all that difficult except for God's gift to racing, the slalom test, which I absolutely cannot stand either on a controller or on the wheel. As you can see, I am failing miserably because it's so hard to have that fine control on a car on the controller. But after about 5 or 6 attempts, we finally get the gold, and then the rest of them we all got on the first attempt. So again, these aren't that hard, and I'm not going to go over them unless you just really want me to, in which case leave a comment below about that and I will see what I can do. But for now, we get the 2 cars from the International B license, the Volkswagen Scirocco from 2010 and the Mercedes-Benz SL55 AMG from 2002. So we now have access to the International B events and the Red Bull Challenge, Not sure if any of the cars in that will fit what we're looking for, but it is something to keep in mind. But for now, I'm going to skip all the menuing I do after this, but it's more of the same of which cars do I have, which events can I do, and I eventually settle on the Tour of Japan with the GTR Nismo. And the first race is at Twin Ring Motegi, which was an easy victory. As you can see on the screen, there's nobody even on the map. Race number 2 was at Tokyo Route 246, which I failed to record for some reason. And then race 3 was at Suzuka, which was another easy victory. So finally some drama-free racing with the GTR. And we're going to move on next to the Supercar Festival. And unfortunately, the most supercar that I have is the GTR Nismo. And if you look at some of the cars I'm going against, like the Ferrari FXX, this doesn't seem like a great matchup. So we're going to give this a go at Monza first. I know it said race 2, but Monza is a track I'm familiar with. And actually, I'd like to say it was an easy victory, but we barely beat the FXX by less than a second. The AI making me sweat a little bit. That does matter. For winning, you get 3 stars. For second place, you only get 2. And I don't have a ton of cars or events I can do, so I need every star I can get. That was close. The next race in the Supercar Festival is the race at Le Mans, and I want to give you an example of what it's like to race AI, where the AI has significantly faster cars than you. So you can see in my mirror, the Aston Martin approaches me really quickly, but I don't take any kind of blocking action. I'm just following the driving line, but the AI doesn't really make an attempt to overtake. And then as we approach the braking zone here, the AI backs off a little bit earlier than I might have expected. You can see I'm really struggling with this car, but you can see the amount of space I gain in the corners despite the AI being in a much faster car. And they tend to brake really early, so we can outbrake them here and go through this right-hander. And then you'll see the power difference here. Just keep an eye on my mirror. You can see I'm looking backwards, but this is just a good example of what this is going to turn into for me, because again, I have a limited car selection. You can see the Zonda goes by. The Lamborghini gives me a nice shove, and it's just enough to keep me in front through the Porsche curves, although I almost lose it, but I do manage to keep it together. But this is an example of what this race is going to be like. However, by the time we come to the end of it, we do manage to get a victory, although had to sweat a little bit because, again, on that long straight, it's very easy to get caught up by these cars that have several hundred more horsepower than me. But we survived, so now we're on to race 3. And race 3 is at Silverstone, and once again, this one not too bad, but if you look at the mini map on the left side of the screen, you can see that the AI arrows aren't too far away like they were in previous races. So again, had to sweat just a little bit, but otherwise we have made it through the Supercar Festival with the Nismo GTR, a car that probably should have no business winning these races, but again, we're just trying to get whatever stars we can, and that was a pretty big hurdle that we are now able to get over. And after all that, if you can believe it, we only need 3 more stars to move on to the International B All-Star race. So we're going to quickly do a 10-minute race at Brands Hatch with the SL55 we got earlier, and fortunately for me, this one was a pretty easy victory, as you can see on the mini-map. No arrows around, and now we are on to the International B GT All-Stars Championship. After I look around a little bit, it's hard to believe that there are 141 possible stars, and you only need 21 to do this race. So here we get to another interesting part of the run. You can see me looking at the car menu to see what I have, and again, I don't have that many choices. Of course, the Honda Fit is out of the question, but I look at the Formula 3 car, and I remember that I modified it earlier to get it under a specific performance point value. So I'm going to quickly bring that back up to full power and minimum weight just to see where I'm at, and it looks like we are at 551 performance points. This particular thing requires 650 or less. You can imagine the cars I'm going to be going against are probably well into the 600 range, so that's going to be pretty tough. But I sit there and think about it, and I eventually settle on having a look at the Lotus 97T that we won earlier to see how low I can get the performance point value of this car, because if I can get it low enough, I'll be able to use it for a lot of the things coming up. But as you can see in the menuing, we don't get anywhere near the 650 required, and so that idea was a bust. And so now we're going to have to come up with something else, and I eventually settle on the Red Bull X Challenge with Sebastian Vettel. And the first of these challenges is the Red Bull Kart Masters series of 4 races. These weren't too bad, not really a whole lot to talk about with these. We got 1 victory at Silverstone, 1 victory at Autumn Ring Mini, 1 victory at Eiger Nordwand, and 1 victory at the custom kart track in Gran Turismo 6. 4 easy victories. That does unlock for us the Red Bull kart, the 125cc kart, but we're not really interested in that. We are actually interested in what comes next, the Red Bull Junior series of races. And first up is a race at Silverstone, and full transparency, I actually forgot to record all of the races in this series, so I'm going to tell the story a little bit showing this first race. So as you can see, this car has a lot more downforce than I'm used to driving, especially on a controller, and it's funny to feel how much differently this handles than it does when you're on a wheel. But anyway, just for the first little bit of Silverstone, you can see I'm braking early. I don't really understand how to drive a car like this on controller, at least not at this point in the run. And one of the things that makes this tricky is also the fact that you and the AI are in the same car. So there's no advantage, so you kind of have to outdrive the AI. And as I've talked about in I believe earlier this video, and certainly in my other videos, driving with the controller is not something I'm used to doing anymore, and so I have these very choppy, not really smooth inputs, which you need in order to drive fast. And so as you can see, we are starting lap 2, and I have gained 2 positions, and I'm still not turning correctly here in this Red Bull Junior. So it was definitely a struggle, but eventually we are going to win all of the races in this series, and we are going to unlock the Red Bull Junior. And so, even though I didn't show a lot of it, you have witnessed the first mistake of the run. So seasoned veterans of Gran Turismo 6 will know that the Red Bull Junior only comes with racing soft tires, and the GT All-Stars Challenge in the International B set of challenges requires racing hard tires or worse. So as you can see, I went through the menu, checking the tires out. For some reason, I just assumed because the Red Bull Junior had racing soft tires in the challenges that it would have all the racing tires on it for free, and I was wrong. So now we're going to go into what I would call part 2 of this run, which is the concern about oil life. So one of the reasons why I didn't just use the GTR Nismo for everything is because I was concerned about oil degradation in the engine, which would result in a loss of power, thus a loss of performance, and thus making it harder to complete challenges, especially because I still had a good chunk of the game remaining. But I had to settle for the GTR Nismo in this instance because it had all the tires, and I would just have to hope that oil would not be a problem, at least for now, until I could sort something out for the rest of the run. And with that, we enter the GT All-Stars Championship with the GTR Nismo on racing hard tires, and the very first race is at High Speed Ring, where I forget to turn. If you ever want to see how someone feels in real time, watch as I come off this wall. You're going to see me wiggle back and forth just a little bit. I was probably thinking, hey, does this controller work? What's going on here? So I try again, and on this attempt, I'm doing a little bit better, but I want to point out a couple things. Number one, you can really see the power differences in the cars on this track. Now, I've showed this before at Le Mans. I'm going to try to bump draft the Ferrari because I know it's just going to go flying past me anyway. And look at this car pull away. The GTR Nismo is not a slow car by any stretch of the imagination, but these cars we're going against in this challenge are really fast. And in AHR, we have a thing called pulling a DJ, which is where you crash for no reason. Classic. But finally, on our third attempt, we do manage to win at High Speed Ring despite some harassment from a Pagani Zonda who really wants to win the race until the final corner when it backs off and gives us an easy win. And then we get another easy win at Apricot Hill, a third easy win at Bathurst, and now on race 4 at Brands Hatch, it is time to talk about the game's AI. You may recall that I mentioned earlier in the video that I had noticed something, but wasn't really sure what it was, and at this point in the run, I had come to the conclusion that there was something about the AI that was changing at the end of races, and I called it the last lap malaise. Now, malaise is not the perfect word for this, but essentially what I noticed was happening, and you're going to see it here at Brands Hatch as I approach the Pagani Zonda here on lap 4 to try and make an overtake. Later in the races, at least in this game, it seems like the AI actually slows down. Now, specifically why that is, I'm not really sure, but as you can see, by the end of the race, I have pulled away from the Zonda by a considerable margin, and remember, in a 5-lap race, it took me until lap 4 to overtake the Zonda, and then I essentially left it behind. Now, before you say this was just a matter of you were warming up to the car, you were warming up to the track, my lap times were not any faster on laps 4 and 5. In fact, my best lap was lap 3. So going forward, I'm seeing a path where maybe I can take a car that's a little bit underpowered or has a little bit less performance, and if I can just hang on until the final lap, I might be able to win some races that I would not have otherwise won. And without spoiling too much, well, you'll see what happens. And so you just saw me finish the final race of the GT All-Stars Championship, which unlocks the International A license tests. And once again, I'm not going to go over these. All 5 of these license tests took me 2 or fewer tries to get gold, and so I'm not going to go over them. I don't think they're that difficult, but it does unlock us a couple more vehicles, the first of which is a Land Rover, Range Rover, Evoque, something? Coupe Dynamic from 2013. And why is a luxury SUV a reward for one of the hardest license tests in the game, Polyphony Digital? But in any case, the second car we get is a high-end performance G37 from Infiniti, which seems and sounds a lot more like I would expect to get from a license test, at least getting all gold on a license test. So we'll see if this car makes it into the run, but it at least sounds cool. And so we have arrived at the International A set of challenges, and I'm not going to show you all of the menuing I did, but just like in the other sets of challenges, I have to figure out which of these I can do based on the cars that I have. So you can see on the screen there is one for the 125cc karts, which I got from the Red Bull challenge, and there are a number of other challenges where the performance point values of the car are in the 600 to 650 range, which I do have cars for, and so those are at least potential options for me to use going forward. And as you can see on the bottom right, you only need 25 stars to unlock the GT World Championship. And the GT World Championship is what we need to complete in order to beat the game. So we are 25 stars away from unlocking the last thing we need to do to beat the game. We are very close, and aside from the Honda Fit in the beginning, which I have yet to use, we have not spent a single credit on cars in this game. Can we do it? Can we beat the rest of this game without spending a single credit? There is only one way to find out, and for some goofy reason, past me settled on attempting the Rainmaster's challenge first. And so we start our little adventure in the Ferrari GTO. Until this game, I don't think I knew there was a Ferrari GTO on top of the Pontiac GTO. we start with intermediate tires on Spa in the Rainmasters Challenge. And this is my first time in this Ferrari so far in this run. And as you'll see, for one, we can't see as we approach Eau Rouge. And for two, this car is very, 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 very unstable. So you can see on the left, the rain gauge says 100%. Of course, what that actually means in this game, I have no idea. But you can see that if I turn the car at all, well, it doesn't end well for me. And my first attempt, I'm like, nah, I don't know how I'm feeling about this. On my second attempt, I go barreling into La Source. See, I know some of the names of the corners on this track, but not Brands Hatch. I'm a somewhat cultured American. We approach Eau Rouge again, and we meet the same traffic again. I slam into the crossbow, and around we go. And so I try again, and on my second attempt, I had switched to the heavy wet tires, and so I'm thinking, surely this is just a me thing. Like, wet tires, we should have better traction. I brake laid to La Source, just trying to find any kind of traction at all, including off the track, which pretty sure there's not much more grip to be found there. And so we approach Eau Rouge again, trying to get it right again. Up we go through Radion, nice bump into that old style race car, and we're going to have to try this again. For some reason, watching this back, I cannot believe I gave this many attempts. The car was so undrivable. I can't believe that I attempted this a fourth time. But we actually have a little bit of success on the fourth attempt until yeah, I crash. And then for some reason I unpause and keep going. What was I thinking? I really have no idea. Maybe I thought because it was raining I could make some progress. I don't know. But then I start to spin around again, and finally, I'd say cooler heads prevailed, but I don't know how cool my head was at this point. Finally, we move on to something else. And that something else was the World Circuit Tour. We are back in the Ferrari. Going to skip ahead a little bit to the first lap. This tour was actually against race cars, which you would think would be a bad sign for the Ferrari, but it is so fast in a straight line that it actually did pretty well here. But here's a little bit of an example of what it's like to drive this car. So it's not very quick in the corners because it doesn't have a lot of aero, but it sure does like to oversteer even on high-speed corners. And so there's a lot of uncertainty when driving this car, but of course, I don't have a choice. You can see I just oversteer almost into the grass just trying to take a corner. Give a little bump to the Subaru, but that's just a small example of what driving this car was like. It was very, very sketchy. And as they say, beggars can't be choosers, but fortunately for me, this whole series of 5 races ended up being pretty easy, surprisingly enough, with victories at Twin Ring Motegi, Ascari, which for some reason I decided to do second, even though that was the 5th race in the series. A much drier and more stable trip through Spa, Brands Hatch, and lastly, my favorite track to drive on Gran Turismo 7, the road course at Daytona International Speedway. 5 races, 3 stars each, that's 15 stars. We only need 10 more stars to unlock the last thing we need to beat the game. So you're probably thinking, wow, only 10 more stars. DJ, you must be close to being done. Well, my friend, I'll have you know, there is 5 hours of recorded footage left that I have to watch. So no, we are not done. And I looked ahead at the very end because I couldn't remember exactly how the run went since I recorded this well before I started editing it. There's still at least one surprise left. But before we get to that, we need some more stars, so we're going to attempt the Super GT 300 Championship in the tuned Infinity G37 that we got earlier. And yeah, I don't think this is gonna work. I'm on sports soft tires against race cars. Yeah, not gonna work. I do have a potential solution though. We are going to go back to the Formula 3 car that started the run. That's right, Ayrton Senna's Formula 3 car, and we are going to give this Super GT 300 Championship a run in this car. So I want to give you an example of what it's like to drive this car. You can see immediately the Subaru on my right has so much more power than I do that it just takes off in the start. And I know that this car is severely underpowered, but it's also extremely light and is going to have decent aero. And so what I need to do is take advantage of the fact that Gran Turismo AI loves to not carry nearly as much speed as it can through corners, try to make up ground in the braking zone and on the corners. I get a little squirrely through here. You're going to see a little bit of mildly questionable driving from me here because I'm carrying so much more speed through the corners than the AI, and I know that I don't have a lot of power to use on the straights. So I'm trying to take advantage of every little inch I can of space. And yes, it's a little elbowy, a little questionable, but nothing too bad. And here again, you can see just how much time I lose on the straights, trying to stay in the toe as much as I can. So racing these cars with this car was a lot of this, a lot of fighting through traffic, a lot of just trying to maximize my time. But at the end of the day, it was just a lot more of the same. If I make it to the final lap, the AI just slows down just enough for the most part to where I can pull away and have a seemingly easy victory. So we get one here at Deep Forest. The second race really shows the last lap malaise. This is the start of the third lap out of 4. Look how far behind I am from the leaders. I am 6 seconds behind. Now this is the start of the final lap where I've lowered the gap substantially, and honestly maybe the last lap malaise starts sooner than the final lap because I closed the gap by several seconds, and then here at the end of the race you can see that I won by several seconds. But the title of this video is not how good is Gran Turismo 6's AI, it's can we beat this game without spending a single credit, and with one absolute blowout at Suzuka plus 2 more mildly easy victories, one at Twin Ring Motegi and one at the Nürburgring GP endurance layout, which first time seeing that this run, we have made it. We are on the final challenge, the GT World Championship. Or are we? DJ. Hey DJ, what are you doing? The Red Bull X 2014 Standard Championship? What are we doing this for? Ah, right. We need a car that's going to be able to race against the Group 1 cars in the GT World Championship. The AI is not good, but they're not that not good. I'm going to save you the 5 races I had to do. This ended up being a huge waste of time because I could not get the Red Bull X 2014 Standard to a performance point value low enough to enter into the GT World Championship. So what am I going to do now? I'm out of options. Or am I? It turns out I have one more option. And in order to get it, I need a whole bunch of stars. Cue the montage.
No, I can't relax. I get the feeling that the size on my back all the time. Then I can't complain. I can't even explain the simplest idea in my head. So don't look back.
friends, after 4 hours of footage condensed into a 3-minute montage, we have our mighty steed, a NASCAR. I can't think of anything more American than taking a NASCAR into the final battle to beat Gran Turismo 6 without spending any money at all. You just watched a lot of things happen. Let me give you a quick recap and set the stage for what's about to happen. So you may have noticed that when I got the 2013 Jeff Gordon 24 NASCAR, that it said we collected half the stars. So in every license, you can get a new car when you collect half and all of the stars for that respective license area. And the NASCAR was the best car I could find in terms of anything that was possible without spending any money. So now we're going to go into the GT World Championship, where the entry requirements are 750 performance points or less. And remember, the Red Bull 2014 Standard and the Lotus 97T could not get down to 750 points. So we had to resort to this, and the NASCAR only has 620 performance points. So we are at a significant disadvantage, but folks, this is it. It is this or the run is over. 5 races. Can we beat the game with this NASCAR? Let's find out. So the first thing you'll notice is that we have Group C cars in this race, as well as a couple of LMP1 cars. Yeah, a NASCAR has no business being in a lobby like this, but we're going to try and make it work. Here we go. Only 4 laps at Bathurst for race 1. I kind of wish these races were a little bit longer. We are going to have to push like crazy to even have a chance at a podium here. Let's see what we can do. The first handful of cars aren't going to be too bad, and of course we know the AI is not that good in this game, but 16 seconds and 4 laps knowing that P1 is an LMP1 car is a tall task, and you can see I am not handling this car too well. Up to the top of the mountain now on lap 1. The goal is and will be, can I outbrake the AI and take advantage of the fact that they are so slow through the corners? There's a pass of the McLaren, and then we're going to go around this Audi. I actually think I did that with no contact, even though I slid a little bit. Pretty good move. We're up to 11th, still lap 1, but you saw we've only gained about 2 seconds on the leader. See if we can do the same thing to the Zonda going down Conrad here. NASCARs do have a lot of horsepower, so this should be pretty good on the top end. We go around the Zonda and down Conrad we go. We are making up a ton of ground on the car in front, and as we hit the braking zone, we get a little squirrely and brake a little early, but you can see we made up a ton of ground on the Esperante there. Speaking of which, why isn't that car in Gran Turismo 7? Then we use the NASCAR's power to get through it and then outbrake the AI here into the final corner of the track. Up into P9 at the end of lap 1. Let's see what the gap is to the leaders at this point. It is 14 seconds, so we've gained pretty much 2 seconds in 1 lap. That's not going to cut it, but here's the thing. We're not exactly trying to win. I mean, we want to win, but the goal is to just get as many positions as we can, because again, this is a 5-race championship. There will be other tracks to gain points on, so for now, we just need to focus on passing the car ahead. Gained a little bit of time on the leader, which means we're gaining a little bit of time on everyone else. We are now approaching the Group 3 Corvette, which we pass easily up to P8. You can see on the mini-map, it looks like there are 2 cars near each other up ahead. See if we can climb the mountain here. And at the top of the mountain, we haven't made up a lot of ground, but here is where we are going to make up all our ground. The braking zone coming down the mountain, not really gaining on the leader, but you can see we are gaining a ton of time on the cars in front, and we're starting to get up to the cars that should be much faster than us on this track. But, as they say, not my problem. I go for a significant dive and get the elbows out. That might have been a little dirty, but we get past 2 cars in 1 corner. See if we can use the NASCAR's power to stay away. We really can't. The vertigo has really nowhere to go around. Maybe a little bit of weaving by me. But at this point, when you played the game for this long, just trying to do what you can. We make it to the end of Conrad in one piece, up to P6, nearing the end of lap 2. And it takes until the top of the mountain for me to get in contact with P5. Once again, we're going to try to make our move as we go down the hills. The AI takes a really slow line through there, and we send it down the mountain. Don't think there was any contact there. You can see we're up to 10 seconds behind the leader, but again, just not enough time here with only 4 laps. You can see the remaining 5 cars on the mini-map, but we only have about a lap and a half left. Can we get there? The 787B is in our sights. Of course, it's going to be much faster than us down Conrad. It's just going to be a matter of holding on. I'm at such a huge disadvantage in this car. I don't have much of a choice but to send it on every single corner I can. Down to a 9-second gap. There is a world where if I had driven this race perfectly, we might be even closer. As you can see, absolutely send it into that corner. We catch up the 787 a lot more than you might expect. And then, of course, I take the lawnmower route for some reason. And we dive under the 787B there. That's what I'm saying. Just send it. Raise hell, praise Dale. We're just sending it in the NASCAR at this point, braking as late as humanly possible, up to P4 on the final lap. I think everyone but P3 is out of touch, and here comes that scary, powerful 4-rotary engine from the 787B, and of course the AI just slows down. Make your car as wide as possible without being ridiculous. Humans might have a problem with that, but the AI has no complaints. The AI doesn't talk back. Here we go up the mountain. We have our eyes on a podium spot in a NASCAR in a race full of Group C and LMP1 cars at the front. And I've caught them at the top of the mountain, and early braking by the AI, I smack them as I go by. I'm just going to ask for forgiveness and not for permission. But we make it into P3, 7.7 seconds behind. Is it possible that P2 might be up for grabs? And then I look at the minimap again, and I just don't think there's enough time. If I had one more lap, it's entirely possible I could catch P2 now that I've gotten a feel for the car. But as we reach the end of the lap, it's P3. Not a bad result. It gives us a chance of beating the game, which is what we're looking for. Now we move on to race 2, which is at Laguna Seca. Not much else to say about this. Here we go. P3 in the points, starting in P14 because Gran Turismo manufactures difficulty by starting you at the back of the pack. Not nearly as high speed a track as I smack into fellow NASCAR driver Denny Hamlin. Sorry about that, Denny. Not nearly as high speed of a track, so we may be able to use the fact that the AI carries so little speed through corners to kind of nullify the fact that they have such a massive acceleration advantage. But you can see 22-second gap to the lead in just 6 laps is going to be really, really difficult. So we just try to take advantage where we can. We're gonna pass the McLaren up to P12, set our sights on the Audi here. Do we go for a dive? Oh, we get the elbows out again. Man, watching this back, past me had enough of being a clean driver. So perhaps a little shame on past me as we break late into the corkscrew. See if we can get around both the Zonda and the Esperante here in one kind of fell swoop. A lot of understeer. Looking back, I wish I had practiced this a little bit more because I think I could have done a lot better. So we dive under the Esperante up into P9. We won't get P8 before the end of the first lap, but we are making progress. Maybe we will. That Corvette took so little speed through there. No, we won't. We will get the Corvette into turn 1, most likely. Okay. All right. Well, remember how I said the AI was questionable? Well, the AI had no reason to brake there, so even if I was trying to be clean, that was not at all my fault. I think the Corvette brake checked me. Why would it do that? Why would you slow down there? It makes absolutely no sense at all. Anyway, P8, here we go, lap 2. And we gained 5 seconds on the leader. Hold on, folks, we might be able to contend for a win here, but first, we have to catch up to the cars in front of us. And it looks like we're going to do that relatively quickly through the left-hander. We're going to go through this fast left-hander and then up the hill toward the corkscrew. 16 seconds. Yeah, we're making up tons of time, just as I had hoped. heavy braking zone coming up for the corkscrew. We may not catch the cars. We are certainly going to... That was almost perfect. Oh, I'm really, really being violent now. Shoving people out of the way. You know, this feels very stereotypical of what you would expect from somebody driving a NASCAR on a road course, with as much as they like to punt each other off of the short tracks. So we're up to P6, and it's only lap 2, and P5 is right in front of us. We are making up incredible, incredible ground here in race 2 of the GT World Championship. 12 seconds now as we enter lap 3. Is this really happening? I mean, this might actually happen. But first, we got to get around P5. Can we do it going into this right-hander? We're going to send it. Elbows out again. Wow. You know, as someone who tries to drive clean, especially with a sim racing team, this makes me cringe really, really hard, especially knowing that I recorded this like 2 years ago and don't even know where my Gran Turismo 6 disc is at the moment. This is like, man. All right, P5. We got a little ways to go on lap 3. Up to the end of lap 3 now, 6 seconds behind the leaders. This is really happening. Hard braking action into turn 1. We actually broke a little early. You can see P5 is in front of us, but look at that mini map. Everyone else is clumped together in front of P5. If we can just get past this 787B, we are going to have a real crack at a podium spot, if not the victory. Man, look at the power difference. But again, we can brake so much later than the AI does. All right, we are clear of P5 into P4. About 2.5 laps remaining, give or take. This is happening. We are about to secure a really good finish here. And I can think of no more appropriate action than to absolutely send it through the corkscrew. So that's what we're about to do. Look at how late we waited to brake here. We broke a little late, but we still gained a ton of time. There we go into P3. 2 seconds separate us and a potential victory at this track. They are right up there, going through the final right-hander into the final left-hander here. Hard braking action. We are right behind them now. Look at how slow they go through the corner. It's almost maddening to think about, but at least not in the context of this run as they pull away on the straight. This could be the lap. 1.3 seconds separates us from P1. Super late braking into the first hairpin. We'll have to pick and choose our moments, see if we can make it happen here. Into P2. Wow. This is very, very close. I did not take those two right-handers very well. Still a second behind. Of course, we're not going to do much catching here. It's going to all be at the famous corkscrew corner, most likely. As we get to the corkscrew, can we send it one more time to catch P1? Braking late, get a little unsteady. I don't make up as much ground as I thought, and we are through the corkscrew. We have just one more lap to catch P1. It is not looking good. That car is so fast and carrying so much more speed out of corners than the others. Into the final corner we go. Late braking here. Are we going to go for a move? We go around the outside, and we take P1. The AI carried so little speed through there. Of course, now we know that the AI's car is so much faster than ours in a straight line. Braking into turn 1, we are going to be under attack for the entire final lap of this race. We need as many points as we can to even have a hope of winning this championship, or at least beating it. Into the right-hander we go, of course. An LMP1 car is never, ever going to not harass a NASCAR on a road course. Trying to go a little defensive and make my car as wide as possible. This is where we really abuse the AI not wanting to overtake you, but also not carrying a lot of speed through the corners. A human almost certainly would have overtaken me there. Going defensive again into the corkscrew. Braking as late as possible. We actually outbrake ourselves, managed to keep it on the track. AI manages to not get by because it slowed down so much for the corkscrew. We are still in P1, just holding on for dear life as we go through the final right-hander here. I think we're going to be okay because of how slow the AI takes this final corner. Through the final corner we go, foot to the floor. Looking back, if this straight had been any longer, we would have been in trouble. Look at how much ground they're gaining. But we take race 2 in first place. So this Pescarolo is going to be the car that is our quote-unquote rival, the one that's either going to win or come in second place in every race. So that's going to be the car to look out for as we move on to race 3 at Spa. Now again, there's not a whole lot to say. Spa is a track I am pretty familiar with from all the times I've played Gran Turismo 7 as I just send it through La Source. And this one's going to be tricky because Spa has a mixture of high-speed sections like we have here, going through Eau Rouge and Radion and the straight here, and then also with Blanchimont, the high-speed left-hander there, that really favors the AI. Even if the AI slows down a lot, the fact that I have to slow down even more due to my lack of aero is just going to make this really hard to get a victory here. But we are already into P11, and we are just now getting into Sector 2. I would imagine we will still be able to take advantage of the AI some through this slower section, just because, again, brake later than them, carry as much or more speed than them through the corners. Up into P10, next is the Esperante here as we approach Pujan, one of my least favorite corners in all of racing. Can we make it stick? Yes, we can. Into P9. Next up is the Corvette. Shouldn't be too much long after that, and there will be a gap. Can I go around the outside? A little bit risky with the understeer. It didn't quite work out the way I had hoped, but I think we'll get the Corvette here into this right-hander, and yes, we do. Up into P8 on lap 1. So we are making some moves, but I suspect the faster and higher downforce cars are going to be really, really tricky to overtake. And it takes our second trip through Pujan to catch up to the cars in front. P6 and 7, of course, sticking together as they have in the other races. And let's see if we can make a move on one or both of them going into this right-hander. We brake late. Nice dive without much, if any, contact through there. And we are up into P6. Still only 5 laps total. We are on lap 2, and we are still a considerable away from P1. The gap is 11.3 seconds, so a lot of time to make up if we have a chance of winning. And it's our third trip on the Kemmel Straight that gives us a chance at P5. We get in the tow, and then we use the fact that the AI brakes so early to make a move into P5. Nice clean move, but again, another gap to the cars in front, but P3 and 4 kind of clumped together, so maybe we can make a move on both of them as we catch them. And you can also see P1 and 2 are close together. Still have a little over 2.5 laps to go. Can we get up to P1 from here? And as we jump ahead to lap 4, you can see the gap is 10.5 seconds to the leader. I just don't think P1 is going to be possible, and based on where P2 is, I'm not sure that's going to be possible either. In fact, I'm not so sure P4 or P3 is possible with the way we're going. But remember, I talked about the last lap malaise. Let's see if that kicks in. Getting ready to come through this left-hander before Pujan. By the end of Sector 2, we have caught P3 and 4. Still a whole lap and more to go. We make a move into P4, 7.6 seconds. We gained about 3 seconds just in that sector there. So we know going through Blanchimont, we are not going to catch these cars. In fact, we'll be doing well to hold up the R92 CP behind us. Almost lose it before Blanchimont, and I have to slow way down. I mean, you can see the AI is just all over the back of me trying to overtake me here. Braking late into the final chicane, trying to make up the distance, and oh my god, what was that? Man, get that off my screen. Like, what in the world? But anyway, mysterious red giant X at a very critical moment of the video aside, our last trip through Pujan shows that we are getting ever closer to P2, but we are running out of time. Can we use this twisty section to gain even more time on the 787B? Here we go. We're gaining a little bit here and there every corner. AI carries so little speed through there. Can we get this car before we get through Blanchimont? 2.5 seconds left. I get the elbows out once again. Dale Earnhardt would be proud, and now we go onto the straight for the final time. We're going to have to slow down a lot. I don't think P1 is possible. We really don't catch the leader at all through this section. I actually take it pretty gingerly, and I'm not really under threat from the 787B. So the final time through the chicane, we outbrake ourselves again. Man, we are braking so late through there. Through we go. The final result is second place, 2 seconds behind. And that's it. So we have a P3, a P1, and a P2. And now we're on to race 4. And race 4 is 5 laps at Silverstone, a track that I am not super familiar with, especially not in a NASCAR. Now, you may have noticed the point standings going into race 4. I pretty much have to win the remaining 2 races in order to win the championship. Now, will that happen? Well, we're going to find out, but I will say there is one more plot twist left in this story. So, let's go. We are already into P13, and you can see we have almost 20 seconds to go before we catch the leader in just 5 laps. But as per usual, we have to deal with the cars in front of us, so we're going to make a move on the McLaren and hopefully the Audi as well, but we don't quite get the car rotated the way we need. But we do get it on the power pretty early on exit, so now we are on up to P11. Jumping ahead a little bit, we have P10 and P9 in our sights as we try to dive down the inside of the Esperante, get the elbows out for the millionth time. We are up into P10, but we've only gained a second on the leader, and we are approaching the end of lap 1. This isn't looking good. We catch up to P10 and P9, but we have to get by them, and unfortunately they have a little bit more power than us. We dive down the inside. We actually brake both early and late. The Corvette kind of turns into us. I let off the brakes for a minute because I'm just not familiar with this combo, but we are up into P8 at the end of lap 1. Let's check the gap. 18 seconds again. This is not good. This is not good at all for catching P1 at the very least. And it takes us till halfway through lap 3 to catch P6 as I smack into the back of them. Crazy AI and their braking. I'm going to have to push like crazy if I'm going to gain any more positions. And you saw the points ranking is a little perilous for me too. 12.5 seconds to the leader here. I think we're in trouble. And if you can believe it, I finished the race in P6. Uh-oh. Do we have a problem going into the final race? Well, the points aren't looking good, but all we can do is drive the final race and see what happens, and it is 2 laps of the Nordschleife and part of the GP circuit, but who calls it that anyway? So here we go. Late braking as per usual. Hello, goodbye, Denny Hamlin, into P13. Now, the Nordschleife especially has a lot of high and low speed sections, so we might be able to take advantage of this. 20 seconds to the leader from here. While it is only 2 laps, it is a lot of time and a lot of mileage up into P12. Still on the GP circuit here. We are going to make the move for P11 almost surely. Actually take that one a little slow. P10 and P9 are right in front of us. We're not having to really work for these positions yet. Still 20 seconds behind, but of course that will change as we get into the technical part of the Nordschleife itself. We might be able to take a position or 2 going into this left-hander here. There's one. Think about a second. As many times as I've gotten the elbows out, you'd think you'd want to do it again. Into P9. And then onto the green hell for the first time, we take P8. And then jumping ahead a little, we take P7 and P6 through that tricky left-right here. I don't remember the names of any of the corners on this track, so you'll have to forgive me. I've driven this track enough, you think I would know the name of them by now, but I really don't. So of course we're being harassed by the vertigo. 17.3 seconds as we get airborne. Certainly not what you want to see in a NASCAR or any car. A long way to go up to P5, but we are making up ground on P1, so let's see what we can do. Jumping ahead about a minute up the track, we've caught P5. You can see P4 and P3 on the mini-map, as well as P1 and P2. A nice, easy overtake here into this hairpin. We already have eyes on P4, the 787B, 11 seconds behind P1. Still a lot of time to make up. Can we do it? We are right on the back of P3 and 4 now. But of course, you can see this is one of the faster stretches of the Nordschleife, and we just get left behind. And I have a date with Barry R, but we managed to retain control of the vehicle. That was dangerous. That could have been really bad. The understeer in this car, because it's so heavy, is so strong sometimes. 10.6 seconds behind the leader. Going up another long straightaway, going up the mountain essentially. So tricky to do in this NASCAR. I wonder if an actual NASCAR has ever driven on this track before. Into the braking zone. Can we make an overtake for P4 here? It looks like it won't be just yet, but there is a slow section coming up with the first carousel. We almost lose it again. Man, it is wild driving this car through the right-hander. Here we go. Into the carousel now. Hard on the brakes. We brake late. We just do a classic Dale Earnhardt move them out of the way overtake in a left-hander. Classic NASCAR move there. I didn't see anything wrong with that. We were just giving them a sample of American racing etiquette. Thank you very much. Now, eyes on P3. Still have a good chunk of this lap left, and we still have a whole other lap. 7.8 seconds behind the leader now. When will the overtake happen? Any moment now, maybe, if we can outbrake the AI, who almost does its own lawn mowing job. This track is really hard to overtake. It's so narrow. Nope, no dive yet. Is it here? Early upshift, we go around the inside. And with that, it is time for the final plot twist. Friends, with that overtake of P3, this run is over. That's right, the run is over. And the reason it's over is because, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we're using speedrun.com rules. And I use speedrun.com rules in these runs because they are kind of the authority in gaming, in my opinion, as to what constitutes beating a game. And in their mind, beating a game is simply triggering the end credits. And as long as we don't completely bottle this run, which, spoiler alert, we don't, we actually have a fantastic battle with P1 before P1 gets around me and just drives away with it. But we secure a top 3 finish in the Gran Turismo World Championship, and that is enough, friends, to trigger the end credits, which I consider beating the game. Now, I know that this might anger some of you out there who think that quote-unquote beating the game means you have to actually win the final challenge to beat the game. I think getting a first place may be possible if I were to drive a little better and also a little dirtier, or maybe if I had enough oil and engine degradation in the Lotus 97T or the Red Bull X 2014. Maybe if enough people ask for that in the comments, I'll oblige you there, but for now, I want to leave you with this video's DJ life lesson. Sometimes wins come in forms you don't expect. Count those wins the same as you would the wins that you want in life. That is a key to beating the game of life. The next challenge video will be on 2 wheels, and I cannot wait to share that with you. Subscribe to the channel to see when that video and more come out, and I promise to be more active on this channel this year. That's all for now, folks. Until next time, see ya!